To have a ground fault on a wire, the wire must be directly buried in the ground unless the conduit is crushed and the wire is exposed. In order to perform a fault locate, the technician will need access to each end of the service wires that are disconnected from the panel, junction box, etc. that they are coming from. Every wire, including grounds and neutrals, will need disconnected. Before disconnecting the wires, the technician will locate the service to give a more accurate depth assessment since the wires will be grounded at both ends. Once we have access to the wires from each side, we will perform a ground resistance test to check the insulation values of the wires. A perfect wire will read 1 billion ohms, and anything under 1 billion ohms may be compromised or have some damage. The lower the number is, the worse the fault. The higher the number is, the harder it is to find that fault. Most faults will range from 1,000 to 100,000 ohms. Anything higher than 100,000 ohms may be hard to identify without dividing and conquering, because the wire would have a high resistance fault that is harder to find. They are usually tiny nicks in the wire that will only be detectable when the ground is saturated in heavy rains. Once we have identified which wires are faulted, we will use an A-frame to pinpoint the fault's location over the top of the wire. We can only identify one fault from each side, so if we establish there's more than one fault, we will need the client to expose one of the faults so we can test in between the two faults to make sure there aren't any other faults that are detectable. I recommend the client has an electrician on site to assist while performing the fault locate unless the client feels comfortable digging and working with electrical themselves. If you have any fault locating questions, please give us a call at 253-826-1177. Thank you for choosing C&I Locates and have a great day.